Okay, on your mark, get set. Let's have an exploration together. So the official title of my exploration is Pesach and Closeness to HaShem, which came first? And I want to try to explore an answer to that question through a deeper understanding of Pesach. You know, we know that Pesach is a yontiv of great detail, a lot of detail getting ready for the yontiv, and a lot of detail even during the yontiv. Probably, you know, more so in the preparation. Get the preparation right, the yontiv goes a little bit more smoothly, but certainly still a lot of detail. So what does Pesach mean? You're welcome. We're a small group. You're welcome to be unmuted if you'd like, you know, especially if you don't have any background noise. But and even if you stay muted, anytime you want to respond or question, you have the ability. So what does Pesach mean?
Passover.
Yeah, it is probably, if not the best translation of a biblical Hebrew word that, you know, that any other. If it's not number one, it's like in a small group, you know. Translation of Torah invariably involves some type of parshanut, exegesis. You have to give some explanations. There are different ways of understanding words in Hebrew. So the Hebrew, you know, conveys either a certain message or intentionally a certain vagueness. Very hard to translate. But Passover is a fantastic translation. Not that it includes some of the midrashic implications, like, you know, the peh, like the mouth who spoke. Yes, you don't get all that in the English, but the core meaning, where HaShem passed over the homes of the Jews during that first Seder night, when the 10th and final plague of Makat Bechorot was visited upon the Egyptians. It is a great, great, great translation. But, you know, amazing, you know, is that really the name of the holiday?
No.
No, right. It's like, if you look at Kiddush that we're going to make on Pesach, we're going to refer to Pesach as Chag HaMatzot. Yeah. If you look in the special paragraphs in the Amida over Yantiv, it's going to refer to Pesach as Chag HaMatzot. If you look in Ya'aleh V'Yavo, you know, it's going to say Chag HaMatzot.
Chag HaAviv.
That's another name for the Chag, but in these core references, and let's take a look. So that's like in the Siddur I'm talking about. And take a look for. I'm not sure what motivated me, but, you know, it's always have a familiar source when you want to learn a little bit about the well, at least certain aspects of the Yontiv and maybe names and dates. You go to Pashas Pinchas, where we take all our maftir readings from the, like, you know, usually the second Sefer Torah, you know, to read for that short maftir that's going to lead into the Haftorah. So you look in Pashas Pinchas, Perek Kaf Chet, chapter 28, verse Tet Zayin 16 of Chodesh Harishon, in the first month. Okay, we know that. You know, that's also something we have to get used to. Nisan is the first month according to the Torah. When we celebrate Rosh Hashanah in the month of Tishrei, that's the 7th month. So, but the first month in the Torah is Nisan. On the 14th of the first month, Pesach Lashem. That's what it says. Pesach. You got the name Pesach, right? Only problem, what's the date that's given there in Pinchas? The 14th of Nisan. The holiday that we celebrate is, you know, that 7-day holiday in Israel, 8 days out of Israel, does not begin on the 14th. It begins on the 15th. Sukkot begins on the 15th. The holiday of Chag HaMatzot begins on the 15th. We have the word Pesach and referred to here, Pesach Lashem, but that is referring to the Korban. That's the Korban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb. Yes, there's a certain holiday spirit to Erev Pesach because it was the time that we brought and slaughtered the Paschal Lamb. But it's the name of the Korban. It's a name that can refer to the day that the Korban was brought, but it's not the holiday that we really mean. And when we say to people, "Have a zis in Pesach," we're not talking about slaughtering the lamb. You know, in our language, we use the name Pesach, but technically speaking, it has to do with the Korban. If you go into Pashas Bo, which is the real time story of Pesach unfolding. So if you start reading in Pashas Bo, for future reference, it's chapter 12, Perek Yud Bet, right from the beginning, where HaShem first gives us the mitzvah that Nisan is going to be the first of all months of the Torah. It talks about the lamb that has to be taken. It doesn't refer to the lamb as the Pesach until the 11th pasuk, the 11th verse, and that is that there's a certain anonymity that we find in terms of naming the holiday. So in pasuk 11, the Chumash says, "V'kacha tochlu oto." So after giving some details about the lamb and what you have to do, sprinkling the doorpost with the blood as well. That's not what we do today. That was in Pesach Mitzrayim, the first Pesach observance in Mitzrayim. We have a mixture in the Torah of certain details, and Ramban points out certain details that are going to be true every Pesach. And and others every Pesach that we're able to have a korban, an offering, and then there were things that are unique to the Egyptian Pesach observance. But Pasuk 11, this is how you will eat it. It referring to the Paschal Lamb. Matnechem chagurim, you're going to be belted up. Na'alechem b'raglechem, your shoes are going to be on. Umakelchem b'yetchem, your walking sticks. You're going to be eating your matzah by holding the walking stick. And there's a certain
haste.
Haste. Thank you. In terms of eating that korban, because we're getting ready to leave, even though we're not going to leave at night, but we already are experiencing this momentum that we want to get out of Egypt. So after this list of of commands, directives, how we're going to eat it, it says Pesachul Hashem. But again, it's not the holiday. It's talking about how we have to eat that korban Pesach. Yes, Steve.
I said I never thought of matzah as fast food.
Very good. But actually, it is very fast food. It's one of the reasons, in the Haggadah, there are two different matzahs, really. I'm not talking about, how many matzahs we have on our Seder plate, but the message of the matzah, we have two very different messages. One is the matzah of slavery, lechem oni. That's how the Haggadah starts off. Halach ma'anya. This is the bread of affliction or of the poor. Another translation is that you say a lot of things on it. But later on, when Ramban Gamaliel comes to tell us that anybody who hasn't explored these three concepts hasn't fulfilled his or her obligation, so the definition that's given for that matzah is the matzah that was interrupted in its rising process, and therefore never became chametz. But the truth is that matzah, the baking of matzah, is very fast. I remember when I was the first time I was ever in a matzah bakery or a ham matzah bakery, from the moment that the water touches the flour until the matzah comes out of the oven. So it means water into the flour, mixing it, kneading it, rolling it out, putting it into the oven until the time it comes out is 2 minutes. It's a very, very fast, process. So, that was part of the attraction of making matzah into the slave food, because it didn't take so much effort to make, very simple ingredients, not expensive, Anybody who's ever kept a box of matzah for a year or more knows it stays really well. It doesn't spoil. It's like perfect if you want to be on a low budget diet and not care to, like being too elaborate in the food you give your slaves. It's a perfect food in that regard. But anyway, so these 11 psukim start off. You finally get the reference of Pesach, again referring to the Korban. As that section continues, it's like the rest of the days are sort of anonymous. It says Uvayom Harishon Mikra Kodesh. On the first day, it's going to be a holy day. Uvayom Hashvi Mikra Kodesh. On the seventh day, there's going to be a holy day, without giving the days any names. It says Ushmatem et hamatzot. You have to guard the matzahs. It tells us Tochlu matzot. You're going to have to eat matzahs. It says B'chol moshotechem Tochlu matzot. In all of your dwelling places, you're going to eat matzah. So it's describing a key action during the holiday, but it's still not using the name. We get into Sefer Vayikra, where we're holding now in the Pasha Shavua, but deeper into the Sefer. So in a nice few weeks, when we get up to Pasha's Emor, and Emor has a famous section on the holidays. So when the Torah says, Eila moadei HaShem mikrei kodesh, these are the festivals of HaShem that are holy days, that you're going to, establish and refer to in their right time. B'chodesh harishon, in the first month, ba'aba'a asar l'chodesh. 1 second. Ben ha'abayim Pesach Hashem. So first it starts out referring to what's on the 14th day is Pesach Hashem, meaning you're going to get that korban ready to be used. So that's the 14th, has the reference to Pesach. And then it says immediately afterwards, here's that more crystal reference that will make us feel more comfortable. And on the 15th of this month, Chag HaMatzot L'Hashem, Shivat Yemim Matzot Tochelu. It's going to be the holiday of matzahs. So the official name, here that's coming out as the primary name is the Chag HaMatzot, the holiday of matzahs. Nevertheless, again, in our own vernacular, we call the holiday Pesach. Not really accurate, but that's the way we refer to it. And the Pesach is really the korban, the offering. So since we're comfortable calling this Yontiv by its korban name, I wanted to take a little deeper look at korbanot. And first, with a selection from that's called the Mir Haggadah. Divrei Torah on the Haggadah from great Mir students, teachers of Torah. First selection I want to share with you was presented by Rabbi Yasgur Levenstein. Rabbi Levenstein was the Mashgiach Ruchani, the spiritual Mashgiach, supervisor, concerned with the spiritual development of the students. He served in that capacity in 3 different locations of the yeshiva. When it started in Mir in Belarus, when it went to Lithuania, and when it went to Shanghai.
There's a picture in the front cover of him in the Mir Haggadah of the whole Beis Medrash in Shanghai.
Right, I have that Haggadah on my desk, not where I'm sitting right now.
It's a beautiful picture.
Yes, it is a beautiful picture, very special picture. I may refer to at least some aspect of that picture a little bit later on. But Levenstein points out, very timely for us because it was in last week's Parshas HaShavua and Parshas Vayikra, early in the Parsha, the Torah describes the Korban Olah as being able to produce Reach Nichoach. So there's a certain pleasantness that's produced by the korban. What is this pleasantness? Does God need us to make something pleasant? No, that part's for sure. The pleasantness is that we generate pleasantness when we follow the halacha. We often think of the korban as being associated. I mean, it's not the only role per se, but many of the korbanot are designed to help us repair some type of error that we committed or omitted. Something we were supposed to do that we didn't, and many times something that we did that we shouldn't have done. So that the korban is part of tshuva. But Rav Levinstein points out, what's the tshuva really coming from? Because when a person erred, transgressed, essentially that person was not listening to HaShem. And now he comes and brings the korban.
Okay.
So when you're giving the korban and you're doing it according to the halacha, you have corrected that midah, that trait that we hopefully was only a temporary lapse in our good judgment or in our self-control, but that korban may be brought as an aspect of part of our tshuva, of our repentance, because we didn't follow the details of Hashem's command. And now in this korban offering, we're being very careful about it. So that's the pleasantness comes from adhering to Hashem and actually impacting on our own neshama and our own spirituality. That's how the korban is corrective in what we've done. And Rav Levinstein pointed out that to have the proper kavanas, tzarich adam la'avod kol yemei chayav. A person has to work every day of his life to have the right kavanas. And when I went over this section this year, it had tremendous personal significance to me because I had the great schus. Who was it that was speaking about the Mir Haggadah?
It's Avi Glad.
Oh, Avi, great. I thought you were the Attorney General. AG. So I had the tremendous schus learning with Rav Aaron Kreiser, Zichrono Livracha.
Sure.
Yeah, he's in row 13, seat 11 in the picture. And
a number of my Rabbeim from the Mir are in that picture as well.
Yeah, and I had the added merit that many years later I reconnected with Rav Kreiser. Even started learning with him once a week by phone.
Amazing. Amazing.
But an amazing person. But I remember him saying in Shir one day, and he gave his Shir in Hebrew, so that the language was probably
correct.
Very similar to the statement here. He said that when it comes to davening, that having right davening, a kavanah in davening is a lifelong process. And now I see he probably got that phrase and that attitude from Rav Levinstein. So it's like I got the chills, from thinking about it.
The yeshiva will refer to him as Rav Chatzkel.
Yes, right.
Chatzkel.
So Pesach is our booster for being on the right derech, for being meticulous in observance. And that brings a certain pleasantness because we're doing the right thing. But adhering to detail is a little tricky. Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zichrono Livracha, pointed out that, the Torah tells us that with the Korban Pesach, al tochlu mimenu na.
No.
You're not allowed to eat it raw, undercooked. Maybe undercooked might be a better. It depends which meforshim. But you can't eat it undercooked. It has to be roasted and not undercooked. So that's a little tricky, I don't know anybody, if anybody, online right now has had the experience where your smoke detector went off because we overcooked something. Rav Moshe says, it's a fine line between overcooking and undercooking, just to get it right. You cook it too long, it's burnt, it's no good. Can't use it. You undercook it, it doesn't qualify. Like the Korban Pesach is not going to qualify if it's undercooked. And Rav Moshe says that it's very, very significant that this is one of the earliest mitzvahs we were given as a people, and really we're being given that mitzvah as we're really being formed into that nation that's going to emerge as an independent nation out of Mitzrayim. Is this mitzvah of Korban Pesach, and it's a message to us that we have to be very careful and deliberate. You don't want to add anything. You don't want to subtract anything from a mitzvah. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to underdo it. You have to navigate life. And in Rav Moshe's words, you have to know what's the right, measurement. What's the right trait in each thing in life. That's difficult. So that's Rav Moshe's message, from specifically from the Korban Pesach, of how we have to navigate life and be careful about it, not to be too extreme. I could say Rav Moshe doesn't speak in those terms per se. He intimates it, not to be too lenient. So it's a challenge that we have to face. Rav Soloveitchik goes back to the Brit Ben Haptarim, the use of animals in a different way, not as a korban, but as part of a Brit, part of a covenant with HaShem. A covenant that was very future-oriented and carried, on the surface, what could look not only as positive aspects, but some difficult aspects, like the slavery in Mitzrayim. And when Rav Soloveitchik reflected on the fact that HaShem made it clear to Abraham that the slavery would be finite, the acharechen yetsu, and afterwards they'll go out and do a chush gadol with great wealth. But Rav Soloveitchik focused on the exodus from Egypt. He reflected on slave rebellions that took place throughout history. They were very bloody slave rebellions. There was a lot of pent up anger. And very often the slaves were intent on settling a long account of cruelty and taking revenge on their former masters. And for many people, in a human being, it might even be something that's natural. The Torah is insistent that we overcome certain traits that might feel instinctive, but they shouldn't be instinctive for a human being. We have to conquer them and change their vector, invest them in proper ways, not in negative ways. But when you think of the fact that you had Egyptians who took babies, maybe even out of the arms of their mothers, and threw them into the Nile, of taskmasters who were viciously cruel to Jews. Would we be surprised if there were acts of revenge that took place? But God cuts it off. God says, "Lo tetzu, you're not allowed to leave. This night that's going to be severing you from the control of the Egyptians, you need to stay home. It's lockdown. Everybody's in lockdown. No one's allowed to go out at all." So that HaShem prevented us from exercising any type of revenge that we might have had. It was a tremendous amount of self-control. Rav Soloveitchik, I guess, these comments are written in English, at least in the format that I saw them, but it probably is a reference to being Kovesh Yitzro, Ezu Agibor HaKovesh et Yitzro, who is the warrior, the one who can conquer his instincts, his inclinations, meaning the bad ones, the ones that are wrong according to Torah law. So it's a matter of conquering. Conquering doesn't mean to eliminate. A real conqueror doesn't want to decimate all the people he conquers. He wants to use them, for his advantage. So, he may want to make slaves out of them. So he has this, free labor source to generate more revenue for his own treasury. So you want to conquer it. You want to use it for good. But Rav Soloveitchik pointed out here that by our being taught how to overcome our anger against at least a certain big proportion of the Egyptian population, that essentially it was defeating something within us, and defeating that is what gave us our freedom. That's what made us really free.
But we did go and conquer them financially. We wiped out all their wealth.
We did, because there was back wages, but it wasn't done with anger, because we found chen. We found favor. There were even Egyptians who were forcing gifts, upon us. So there was no anger involved in that. And that was due compensation without anger. Nobody was injured by a Jew in this whole process. It was a very peaceful exit from the country. God wreaked havoc within the Egyptian society, because there was no household, she'ein shamet, that didn't have a loss during that plague of the killing of the firstborn. So we're seeing aspects, from this korban, from the night, of self-control. Chametz is a matter of control. I share with you that the baking of hand matzahs takes 2 minutes. Maybe it was even 1.5 minutes. Very, very, very quick. But so we are controlling. You can't. Let's do it the other way around. In order for us to fulfill the mitzvah of achilas matzah, of eating the matzah on the Pesach night, we have to be eating a mixture of flour and water that, had it not been properly supervised, could have become chametz. We're not yotze. We don't fulfill the mitzvah if we had some type of mixture that was never able to ferment. So matzah is a big symbol of control. And what we really want to control, the fact that some people like controlling other people, but what our real mission is to make sure we can control ourselves. And whatever energies and feelings that we have, that we channel them into things that are appropriate and good and match what the Torah expectation and command is for us. And this message that Rav Soloveitchik spoke about, how when we were able to conquer whatever inclinations we might have had towards revenge, which we were never given that avenue to do, that's who we came free. we see that thought reflected in Pirkei Avos, in the sixth parak of Pirkei Avos, where there's this description of the luchos, so the two tablets that Moshe brought down from Har Sinai. Michtav Elokim hu, they had divine writing, charut al luchot. That divine writing was engraved into those stones. Al tikra charut, don't read those letters as engraved, but use the same letters in the same order, but just changing the vowels a little bit. Read it as cherut, because you can't be free without the Torah. Torah, which some people unfortunately look at Torah and say, oh, so many restrictions, I can't do this, I can't do that. But it's the Torah's code that actually gives us our freedom. So so certainly, if we think of the question that the title that I said I was giving to this talk, that Pesach and the Closeness to HaShem, which came first, in many, many ways, Pesach generated a closeness to HaShem. By our abiding by those laws, being in control of our passions, following the dictums and the details of the observances, ridding ourselves of chametz, eating matzah when we're supposed to eat matzah, having the korban Pesach in all its details, being formed officially as a nation, autonomous nation now coming out of the shackles of Mitzrayim, is a very, very special time. So special that Hashem made the month of our Exodus the head month in the Torah's year, the Torah counting of the months. This is a beautiful spring development relationship between us and Hashem. But it didn't start there. We certainly have to give credit to Abraham. And Abraham had multiple major contributions to solidifying the bond that would be not only Abraham's bond to Hashem, but would be continued throughout generations. In that prophecy that Abraham had at the Brit Ben Harim, where the animals except for the bird were split, and Hashem made certain promises, even though there was some foreboding news in it. So Hashem tells Abraham in the beginning of that pasuk that talked about our exodus and about the great wealth that would come about. But the beginning of that pasuk, Hashem says, "V'gam et hagoy asher ya'avodu dan anochi." That also that nation that we will be serving. Note that, and if you study the psukim going back in Parak Tetvav, chapter 15 in Sefer Bereshis, you're not going to see Mitzrayim was not mentioned by name. Could have been other nations. That's why Yaakov, according to Rav Soloveitchik, felt that he had met the requirement, even though the years weren't the same, didn't match up to the 400 years. But Yaakov knew that Hashem, was willing to strike a deal, reduce the price of certain things. But Yaakov certainly was in Golus. He was mistreated also. So there's no reference to a specific country here. But Hashem does say, "V'gam et hagoy asher ya'avodu dan anochi," and also the nation that we will be serving, dan anochi. What does dan mean? Dan is from din, judgment. Dan, judgment, right? And anochi means I. Rav Chaim of Brisk pointed out that it's a little bit like it's an unusual phrase, though. Rav Chaim Brisk, really, said that you would think if we didn't know the answer to the question that Rav Chaim is bringing up, we would have said that it should have said Anochi Dan, that I will not that the English and the Hebrew always go in that order, but here even in the Hebrew, Rav Chaim suggested that it really should be like Adin Anochi,
Future.
at least in the future, to put it into the future, because it wasn't happening then. The shibud, the slavery, wasn't really hadn't happened yet. Not even counting from Yitzhak. Yitzhak hasn't been born yet. So that it should be something in the future. But Rav Chaim pointed out that the focusing it on that word Dan, was focusing God's role, and this unusual phrase was telling us something about HaShem, which he only allowed himself to be in relationship to the Jews. Is that a judge really needs to be impartial. A judge has to seek the truth and not allowed to play favoritisms. We know that in halacha, we have an obligation to make sure litigants, appear as equal as possible in a court. We don't want somebody coming in a $1,000 suit and somebody else coming in rags. That we look to set the stage, that there won't be any biases involved. But when it comes to Israel, Reb Chaim, and as elaborated on by Rav Soloveitchik, his grandson, is that HaShem can never be dispassionate when it comes to the Jewish people. There's always this special bond that HaShem and Bnei Yisrael have this intrinsic, eternal connection. And if we're in pain as a people, then however we can understand it in the divine realm, there's a certain pain that HaShem feels as well. And that God, at that Brit Ben Abtarim, back in chapter 15 in Sefer Bereshit, that God was promising Avraham that it's not just that he'll judge the nation that enslaves Avraham's descendants, but that God will always be an advocate for Bnei Yisrael, because our cause is God's cause. Our mission is to be God's people, and God has a special love because of that with us. And so as much as we developed as a nation, we also need to appreciate that strength of the relationship that we inherited from the Avot, very special Hakaras Hatov to Avraham. And so we came into the unfolding Jewish history with a strong commitment from HaShem, and Baruch Hashem, we earned a commitment, a strong commitment from Hashem by our own actions in later generations, and particularly with the Egyptian experience and the Yetzias Mitzrayim, and where we went to and how we went forward after being freed of our bondage, developing ourselves from people who had sunken very low in the spiritual realm, and to be able to receive Torah and to march forward. There have been many great things that have happened to us. We've suffered some painful events, but Hashem is always with us. We want to keep our commitment. Really, Pesach is a time to renew our commitment, and we wind up focusing a lot on the details of preparing for this Pesach. But let us remember that the details that we always want to keep in mind are the details of our covenant between ourselves and HaShem. We always have details. I'm not looking to wash away any details. As Rabbi Moshe Feinstein pointed out, sometimes hard to navigate, the intensity of the details that we should be, looking at. But we do live a life that has many details. But the big picture, we always remember, we want to generate nachas from HaShem, that we should be doing the right thing. And we should know what our direction is, marching into the future, keeping that strong commitment and seeing greater and greater things and helping to bring Geula Shlema, the ultimate redemption, speedily in our days. Any questions or comments are welcome.
Shikoah.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I want to wish us all a Chag Hashem Sameach, and to find ourselves bonding with Hashem over the Pesach Chag HaMatzot experience.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, you too.